We start with the latest on the chaotic Australian stock market, which is in free fall amid fears of another global recession. I'm joined at the desk by Nine's finance editor, Ross Greenwood. Good afternoon to you, Ross. What has happened today?
Yeah, so basically what's happened is the US market has fallen overnight. The trade war between China and the United States, Xi Jinping in China, Donald Trump in the United States really has stoked fears of a global recession. As a result of that, the stock market here, I can tell you, in these falls from where we are today, has accelerated. So right now, the All Ordinaries Index is down by 2.7 points. It's a pretty decent fall, 181 points, which means, in actual fact, the value of the stock market fall closer to $46 billion right now. Now, part of this is all about interest rates in the United States. Overnight, one key interest rate, which is the 2-year government bond, basically went lower than the 10-year government bond. Sorry, went higher than the 10-year government bond. Now, this is called an inverse yield curve. And what it basically means is that there's a chance of a recession. It's a signal of a recession. And it's the first time this signal's been seen since before the global financial crisis in 2007. And this is the reason why the market's paid such attention to this, and really one of the reasons why the markets are falling today.
So what are the chances of a recession right here in Australia?
Probably negligible, I would suggest. The reason for that is over the last little period of time, iron ore prices in particular have risen dramatically. And so as a result, to a certain extent, many households might be feeling it. Certainly retailers are feeling it. The construction industry is feeling it. But the overall economy is not feeling it because we've actually had a massive bonus from big iron ore prices and exports. So that's going to stave the way for the time being. But certainly even the government today, with an unemployment number that came out at 5.2%, stubbornly high, is alert to these things that are happening overseas. And of course, we are never immune, as the markets are showing today.
Okay, an absolute chaotic day on the stock market. Ross, thank you.
No problems.
A triple murderer who killed his mother and 2 siblings has been released from jail in Sydney. Matthew De Grucci served 23 years of his 28-year sentence for the triple homicide, which was described by a judge at the time as seemingly frenzied. The now 41-year-old has been released on parole on the condition he doesn't contact family members of his victims or visit the Illawarra and Shoalhaven regions. His extended family says he should never have been released. Let's go to pictures just coming in now from our news chopper of a house fire at Cheltenham. 6 fire crews are trying to extinguish the blaze that has taken hold of the home, forcing much of the roof to collapse. Emergency teams are still trying to work out if anyone is inside. We will have updates as they come into the newsroom. We'll head to Melbourne next, where Niri Tai has an update on a gang that used garden shears and nunchucks in a vicious attack which left 2 teenagers wounded.
Well, here inside this fish and chip shop in Dandenong is where it all unfolded. The 2 victims, aged 18 and 16, were standing here waiting to pick up their order when a gang of teens armed with weapons burst in and started attacking them. It was around 6:30 last night when 7 teenagers armed with a golf club, garden shears and nunchucks burst into this fish and chip store on David Street. Mohammed and his brother were working at the time.
I saw there's pushing, punching, something like that, but I didn't saw him the stabbing. And I jumped from that counter, ran away outside, yeah.
The 2 victims tried desperately to protect themselves using the chairs from inside the restaurant. One of them also ran to the back to try and hide. After their vicious attack, the offenders went outside and turned their attention on the victim's car, jumping and smashing on the windscreen.
They are gangsters. They don't like each other. They wanted to be stronger than the other.
Despite being injured, he got into his vehicle and chased after his attackers. He then returned and was treated by paramedics. He was taken to Dandenong Hospital, where he's recovering in a stable condition.
His name is Scarface. He's my friend. Yeah, they got a knife.
As the violence unfolded, Mohammed jumped over the counter and actually escaped through the front door. His brother ran through the back of the store before squeezing through a tiny gap.
Now look, I've got the damages up here. I've got business loss for a while. I've been disturbed, for whole night. I didn't sleep,
The second victim, a 16-year-old boy, is now recovering at home with minor injuries. At this stage, no arrests have been made.
At least 6 officers have been shot during a standoff with a man that lasted more than 8 hours in Philadelphia. Police arrived at a house to issue a drug warrant when the man began opening fire, triggering a siege situation. 2 officers were trapped inside the house for a short time before SWAT teams moved in. The armed man surrendered to police a short time ago. The political focus has switched to the Leaders Summit in the Pacific Islands today. Let's get an update from political reporter Kerry Yaxley. Kerry, what's the latest?
Well, Amber, the New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has had a bit of a crack at Scott Morrison ahead of meetings with Pacific leaders. She basically said Australia needs to do more to reduce carbon emissions. The impact of climate change is a huge deal in Tuvalu, where the Pacific Islands Forum is happening. Australia has been criticised for a perceived inaction on climate change, and there are also claims that we're too reliant on coal.
Every single little bit matters, and so that is why New Zealand has joined that international call. It is why we speak, I believe, strongly on the international stage around these issues, but ultimately we all have to take responsibility ourselves. My reference was to the fact that Australia has to answer to the Pacific. That is a matter for them.
Coal will remain an important part of Australia's economy. The fact is the global economy is transitioning, but coal will be a part of the energy mix.
Well, the Prime Minister has been in talks behind closed doors for much of the day with other leaders. Amber, we are expecting that we'll hear from